As we move forward in our program, I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker. In your programs, you have a bio, but I'm not going to read that because you can read that at a later time. What I will say about Mr. Epps is, in my very first conversation with him, I had several thoughts. The first was, man, this guy likes to talk. But on a more serious note, the second one was, as I began to listen to his words and hear what he had to say, I came to a very clear understanding of what is at the core of this man. As an educator, as a man of color, his goal is to empower young people of color in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. He's committed to developing people. He's committed to educating people. He's committed to giving them opportunities to enhance their technological skills, not only for future careers, but for technologies that haven't even been invented. As a result of his work, he's been recognized by the White House for his accomplishments. He is a father, a husband, and now a fellow friend. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Jeffrey Epps.
Good morning, everyone. All right, so leadership. You know, I believe that there are three components to leadership. There's leadership itself, there's management, and then there is passion. And I'm going to illustrate that for you here today by telling you the story of the greatest football game ever played. Now, I am not talking about Super Bowl 51, where the Atlanta Falcons decided at halftime that they did not have to come out and play. Okay? That is not what I'm about to talk to you about. It was in the summer of 1982. Now, I'm going to say some things that may be a little disturbing for you young folks in here, so if you need a moment to get yourself together, please do so. Because in 1982, I received my first computer, and I didn't have the internet or Google. I had this big, thick book that I had to read. So the first thing is, there was no internet in 1982. Oh yeah, I know. You okay? You okay? You okay? Yeah, I know, it's disturbing. You know, the other thing is that cartoons on Saturday went off at noon. Yeah, there was like no Cartoon Network or, I know, you okay? I know. No. And television went off at 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, if you got up and you turned the TV on at 2 a.m., all you saw was a white screen and you heard I know. Now here's the other thing. Now, if you need to walk out, get yourself together, please do. There was only one phone in the house. It was in the kitchen. And it only had a cord this long. And when you were actually on the phone, making a phone call and having a discussion, everybody in the house could hear it because that was the only phone. There were no wireless phones at that time. So, give yourself a few minutes. I know I said some disturbing things. Okay? Well, in 1982, I was working on a computer program in my room and I was having some trouble with the code. It wasn't working. So I decided to go outside and clear my head. And in the distance, I could hear cheering. And the cheering was coming at 30 to 45-second intervals. And we had just moved into this neighborhood, so I decided to walk toward the cheering. And I got to the end of the neighborhood, and there was this huge open field, and there were all these people. And when I say there were a lot of people, it was equivalent to a high school football game. And in fact, I discovered that's what was being played, a football game. Now, this wasn't your ordinary football game because they didn't have on pads and helmets or anything like that. They were wearing street clothes. It was a good old-fashioned backyard football game. So I'm standing there and I'm watching the football game, and this gentleman walks up to me and he says, "Hey, where do you live?" And I said, "I live here in Glenboro." He says, No. Do you live on the east side or do you live on the west side? I said, I live on Common Circle. I just moved here. And he says, "Well, you live on the east side. This is the west side. You need to get over to the east side." So I'm thinking, a little hostile there, aren't you? But I walked on over to the east side. And I'm standing there and I'm watching the football game. And I'm noticing that the west side boys were huge. These were some big boys. And the east side boys weren't so huge. And they were getting run over. And so I leaned over to this lady and I said, "What's the score?" And she says, "Well, right now it's 7-0, but by the time we finish, it'll probably be 63-0. You see, those West Side boys are bigger than our boys, but we're not going to back down from them." So I sat there for about another 20 minutes watching the game, and of course, the West Side boys scored again, so it was 14-0, but then there was an injury timeout. Because it seems as though one of the West Side boys fell on the East Side quarterback's leg, so they had to cart him off the field. So they bring him over, and one of the players, he says, "Oh, great. Now we don't have a quarterback, and we're one man short." And then everybody turns and looks at me. And he says, "Hey, aren't you that new kid that moved in over there off Common Circle?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he says, "Can you play football?" And I said, "I guess." I hadn't actually played football, but I'd seen it on TV. So I figured, how hard could it be, right? So he says, "Can you play quarterback?" And I said, "I guess." Once again, I hadn't actually thrown football, maybe once or twice in the backyard, but I'd seen it done on TV. You know, I watched Montana and all these great quarterbacks. How hard could it be? So he throws me the ball. He says, "Throw me a pass." So I throw him a pass, and he says, they all look at each other, and they go, "Huh?" And he says, "Well, I guess you'll have to do. Come on." So I said, whoa, wait a minute. I said, if you guys keep playing the way you're playing, you're going to lose. And they said, "Well, those West Side boys are just bigger than us, you know, but we're not going to back down from them." I said, "Well, wait a minute, come here. We're going to do something different." They all stood there and stared at me. And I took them over to a little pile of, a little clearing in the field, and I got this stick. And I said, "Here's what we're going to do. We're no longer going to run the ball. We can't run against that defense. They're too big and they take up too much space. We're going to throw the ball." I said, "Here's what I want. To my right, to my far right is going to be my even receiver. To my far left is going to be my odd receiver. The receiver to my inside right is going to be my X receiver, and the receiver to my inside left is going to be my Z receiver. There will be no huddle. We will no longer huddle. When we finish a play, we will jump up and get back to the line of scrimmage. Does everybody understand me?" Yeah, we got it. I said, "All right. I'm going to call the play at the line of scrimmage, and I'm going to call it in 2 parts. Now, this was the computer geek in me coming out, because I was analyzing the situation, right? And I said, so when I call the play, I'm going to call the play in 2 parts. I'm going to call a number first. When I call an odd number, that means my odd receiver is going to go deep, and my even receiver is going to run a post. If I call an even number, that means my even receiver goes deep, and my odd receiver runs a post. Got it? Yep, we got it. I said, all right. So now, the second part of my play is going to be a word. That word will begin with a Z or an X. And when I call a word that begins with an X, that means my X receiver is going to run a crossing route, and my Z receiver is going to go deep. And if I call a word that begins with the letter Z, that means my Z receiver is going to run a Z pattern, and my X receiver is going to go deep. Got it? Yeah, we got it. I said, all right, everybody else is going to block. Let's go. So we walked out onto the field, and those West Side boys, they were ready for me. They were pointing and shouting and saying, yeah, here we go. We got a new quarterback. Here we go, boys. We got a new quarterback. Look at him. He's scared. Look at him. You can tell he's scared. I wasn't scared. I was terrified. As I stood up there, and they were shouting and pointing at me, and my receivers are looking at me like, okay, let's go here, Mr. Quarterback. I'm thinking to myself, how did I get myself into this situation? And what if my plan doesn't work? So I looked at the defense, and I realized that the middle of the field was wide open. So I said, you know what, I'm going to hit my X receiver, because those boys are coming fast. Those West Side boys were coming fast. And they're shouting and pointing at me, and there was one player standing right over the center. I called him Big Boy. Old Big Boy was just taunting me the whole game, letting me know he was coming after me. So I called my first play. And I'm trying to sound tough, right? So with all of the bass I could muster in my voice, I go, 38 X-ray. 38 X-ray. 38 X-ray. And I'm in the shotgun, so I go, set, hut, and I take a 3-step drop, and I let that ball go because Big Boy was coming. I let that ball go across the middle of the field, and it hit my ex-receiver dead in the chest. And when it hit him in the chest, it made this popping sound. Pop! And he caught that ball, he hit the ground, and he rolled, and I yelled, go, 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 go! And we ran up to the line. All right, so now, it's second down. I look at the defense. Middle of the field is still wide open. Big Boy's still shouting at me, but he's a little winded now. It wasn't, hey, I'm going to get you. It was, okay. I'm going to get you. So at that point, I realized my plan was working a little bit. They were tiring out real quick. So this time I decided I was going to hit my Z receiver. So I look at the defense. Middle of the field's wide open. So I call my next play. I call 37 zebra. So a little bit more bass in my voice now because I'm starting to feel it a little bit, you know. So I'm like, okay, all right. 37 zebra. 37 zebra. We snap the ball, hut! I take a 3-step drop, and I hit my Z receiver right as he's coming out of his break. Once again, ball hits him in the chest. Pop! So, I think then I said, you know what? I'm going to try my X receiver on that post pattern. I'm going to try my even receiver on that post pattern. So, Big Boy, he's still trying to come at me, a little bit more winded, but this time, his hands made his way to his hips. Oh, he was tiring out. The whole West Side defense was tiring out. And I heard some lady on the west side shout out, y'all better stop letting that little skinny boy pick y'all apart. But hey, it was happening, and it was happening fast. So I decided to hit my even receiver on a post pattern. So I called an odd number so that he would run that post. So I called 37 Zulu this time. 37 Zulu. Set, hut. I take a 5-step drop because I've got to let that pattern develop. And I lob that ball over the middle of the field. And all of a sudden, my ex-receiver slides right up under it. Somebody from the east side shouts, oh, shoot, we got ourselves a ball game now. So at that point, something strange happened. As I was walking up to the line, everything got quiet. I couldn't hear a thing. The only thing I could hear was my own heartbeat. And as I looked over to the west side, I could see them pointing and shouting at their players because their defense was being dismantled before their very eyes. And I scanned the west side defense, and they all had their hands on their hips. and they were breathing hard. I looked over at the east side, and they were jumping, and they were shouting, and they were cheering. Now that day, what I saw was a look of happiness on their faces. But as I reflect back on it, as I was preparing the speech, I realized it was more than happiness. It was hope. For the first time, they actually felt that they could beat that team. So I leaned over to my offensive line, and I shouted, and I don't know where this came from, but I shouted, "They're tired, run them over." And I looked at my receivers, and they were all looking at me, and they were grinning, and they were nodding their heads like this. And I'm going to tell you something. It was that moment that I realized I was in full command. So I was in the shotgun formation, and I decided to go up under center. And I called, and I realized at that point that I wanted to take that ball and run for a touchdown. So I called 22 Zulu. 22 Zulu. And I walked up under center, and I looked right at Big Boy. He was about right where you were. And I looked at Big Boy in his eyes, and I grinned at him. And I said, "Don't blink." And I said, "Hut!" And I took a 3-step drop, and I shot out of that backfield like I was shot out of a cannon. And Big Boy got rolled over by my center because he was exhausted. And on my way by him, I tapped him on the head. And I had to get, at that point, I was headed toward that safety because that safety was the only thing standing between me and the goal line. But the West Side defense was closing in on me like this, and I was shooting up the middle of the field like this. So I couldn't go right, I couldn't go left. I had to go straight at that center, at that safety. But the interesting thing is while I was watching football on TV, I learned this lesson about leverage. And leverage in football, it basically goes like this. Lowest man always wins. So as I'm headed toward that safety and I'm bracing myself for impact, I lower my inside shoulder because I know we're going to collide. And just before impact, I closed my eyes and all you heard was a great big thump. And then everybody went, "Ooh!" And when I opened my eyes, I was still running forward. But the safety had my right leg. And as I jerked my right leg from him, I started to go to the ground. And on my way down to the ground, I thought, not today. I stuck my left arm out, and I braced myself to the ground, and it broke my fall. I jumped back up, and I started running toward the end zone. I made my way to the end zone, and when I got to that end zone, I turned and I looked at that West Side crowd, and I went like this. And then I ran over to the East Side crowd, and I gave the ball to the quarterback who had been injured. And I told him, "Spike it." He spiked it, and I yelled, "East Side!" And the crowd yelled, "East Side!" Long story short, that's the way the rest of that game went. And when it was over, we beat them 63-14. They were so exhausted during that game, we didn't even have to run. We just jogged past them. But my plan had worked. Now, what does this have to do with leadership? Now, remember I said before, leadership has 3 components. Leadership, management, and passion. Well, you see, most people think that leadership and management are the same thing. They're not. Leadership deals with direction. It is synonymous with direction. And the very thought, when I approached the East Side team and said, we're going to have to change what we're doing, that was leadership. I said, we must change. If we're going to win, if we're going to succeed, we have to change our direction. That is leadership. Now, management it's a little bit different, and it's a little harder. Because management deals with the processes, the procedures, and all the things you need to do to be successful, to go in that direction. And that's why I wrote it out in the dirt. That was the plan. That was the management aspect of what we needed to do. But even changing the direction and coming up with an excellent plan is not enough. Because if you don't have the third component, passion, and if people don't sense that passion and feel that passion, they will not follow you. And this is the way passion works. It starts right here. And it's what I felt when I walked out on that field for the first time. Now, a lot of people call it butterflies, and that's exactly what it was. Some people call it, what they call it, bubble guts or something like that. Well, that's exactly what I felt at that moment. But you know what? That was passion. It was brewing inside of me. And when it made its way up, and on its way up, it injected my heart, and it flooded my entire body with it. And then it manifested itself into actions here on the outside. So this is my takeaway for you today. Leadership, management, and passion. All right, so let me take this home. You're going to face a Glenboro West one day. You're going to face your own Glenboro West one day. And they're going to be bigger, and they're going to be stronger, and they're going to be faster. But you are going to have to take a stand. And when you do, when you decide to take that stand, or if you decide not to take that stand, that will be the difference between you leading and you following. And along your leadership journey, take the time to embrace the ideas of others. Because when you do, you will learn what Aristotle learned centuries ago. That the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Along your journey, do not seek to simply meet the expectations of others. Okay? This is what I want you to pull from this. Okay? When you go out and you decide to lead, make sure that everybody understands that you're not here to set the bar, and you're not here to raise the bar. You are the bar. Be that bar. Now, and when you do all of those things, there will be no need for you to show courage. Not at all. Because you will emit courage. And it will radiate from you the way the sun is radiating right now upon this earth. Finally, I dare you to dream. I dare you to dream. Because Langston Hughes said it best. Hold fast to dreams. For when dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field covered with snow. I want every young man in this room right now to stand up. Not just stand up, rise up. Now repeat after me. Rise up. 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 Your leadership journey begins today, and your time to rise is right here, and it is right now. Thank you for listening.